It's official. Florida is less stressful than LA. It's ClipperBlog Live following the Clippers' 110-93 thrashing of the Miami Heat one night after the Clips went to Orlando and handled the Magic by 24. Fred Katz's here to talk about tonight's game, which the Clippers had in hand from the very beginning, building up a 39-15 first quarter lead and never really letting it get close after that. Stat of the night tweeted out by Cooper Moorhead: Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan combined for 64 points on only 37 shots. Two usual Clipper bloggers on for today in Los Angeles, Patrick James.
Howdy, folks. That was a good win. These guys are figuring it out, sort of, maybe, a little.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Also in LA is our resident Serb, Jovan Buha.
What's up, guys?
Jovan, you're making your return. You're finally back.
Yeah, I think this is my second one this season, or second or third. Not sure. Might be second regular season, third overall, including preseason.
Wow, that's great. I'm really glad that we took the time to discuss that. That's huge news. Patrick.
Really important.
Yeah, Patrick. 39-15 in the first quarter. Crazy.
Uh-huh.
They didn't command the whole time. Miami's not what they were before, but they're, an above 500 team, and this was the second night of a back-to-back. I think this was an impressive win. Maybe the best win of the season. The Suns' win was also obviously a good win as well. What did you see from the starters tonight that just got them going so well in the first quarter?
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, Griffin, Paul, and Jordan were just fantastic. I think the main thing that I noticed in the first quarter was Griffin. He was really struggling to shoot against Orlando, and, apparently Sam Cassell was telling him, you got to keep shooting, just keep shooting. If you're a superstar, you can't be afraid to go 0 for 30, something to that effect. And, to his credit, he kept shooting. But it's still a little worrisome when you see your main player looking out of sorts, like he has, people in his ear, different voices in his head. And it looked like Griffin was able to just shut down all the voices, get quiet, and be decisive. And he was attacking and going to the hoop, and not just going to the hoop, but going to the hoop with the pogo-style approach that we saw so much his rookie year, and then at times last year, where he is able to get really good position off a quick move or a good entry pass, and then even when he missed a couple of bunnies right at the hoop, he was able to just bounce back up and tip it in or get an offensive rebound and keep it alive. And I think when you see Griffin being that aggressive and going to the hoop, then the other stuff kind of falls in line. When he's rebounding, and that was more of a first half thing and a second half thing in this game, but when he's rebounding and playing aggressively like that, it really forces the defense's hand. And if the defense has to react to him and he makes a couple of shots, then the next time he drives to the hoop, they collapse on him and he can kick out, and you start to see the Clippers' offense function like it used to last year when they were the best offensive team in the league. So I think it really starts with him. He's not the only factor, but seeing him move like that makes it. Then that kind of sets in motion all of the other players, and it's really a good thing to see. It's a little bit encouraging after not a lot of encouraging signs so far this year.
I wanted to add just to what Patrick said and say, I think this was the best win of the year, and I think the underrated part of I didn't see all of the Magic game yesterday. I saw some of it, but the part I did see, the bench did play really well, and I did play yesterday, and I thought they played well today too. And I think you're starting to see obviously having Jamal Crawford off the bench is kind of like that safety net of 5 seconds left, nothing has happened with the offense. You can just give him the ball and he'll create something. But I really like I think the bench is slightly underrated, and I think that they actually are better, with the exception of JJ in the starting lineup, they're probably a much better shooting lineup than the starters. And I think when you go with Spencer, Hidu, Jordan, Farmar, and Jamal, those are 4 pretty good three-point shooters. And I think when they move the ball well and aren't just giving the ball to Jamal and just having him, isolate at the top of the key, I really like what the second unit can do in spurts offensively, and I really think that with their shooting, they can kind of break games open, and build on the lead if they get kind of hot. And I just think that's something to monitor. We hadn't really seen the second unit offense looking that well since the Sacramento game and a bit in the Phoenix game, but the last two games I think that's been really encouraging because I think we all kind of thought that maybe depth could be somewhat of an issue and maybe this bench wasn't as good as we originally anticipated. Farmar hasn't played particularly well. Neither is Big Baby. I'd say Hawes was struggling to start the season, but I think now they're starting to pick that up. And obviously, the Clippers are only going to go as far as Blake and Chris and DJ are going to take them. But I think if the second unit can kind of be greater than the sum of its parts, I think that's a really big thing that can separate them from other Western Conference contenders.
Okay, well, I'm going to come right at you guys because I asked you guys what you thought of the starters, and Patrick said Blake, and Jovan said the exact opposite of what he thought of the starters. He said what he thought of the bench. But I thought what was so important about the starters tonight was that Chris Paul has just looked, and I totally agree with you, Patrick, on Blake. I wrote about this morning that he has to come out and just be more aggressive as a facilitator. It's not just about getting to the hoop to score. It's because he looks so much better for everybody else when he's getting to the hoop. He can create so much better for everybody else because defense is collapsing on him. He can kick out the shooters. He can play a high-low game with DeAndre. It all just works better, and the offense flows so much better when he's doing that as opposed to just settling for outside jumpers. He did a great job of that today, no question, especially out of the pick and roll, out of isolation, whatever you want to call it. His face-up game looked really good on the whole. But Chris Paul, for the third straight game, just looked absolutely tremendous, right, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough good things about how Chris Paul looked tonight. We were talking about all-time assist-turnover ratios during the game, I think you and I were, and I mean, he's at an astounding level. I believe you told me, Fred, that he was at 6.8 assists per turnover going into this game.
After the game.
Oh, after the game, yeah. This game, 12 assists, 1 turnover. To go with the 26 points. I mean, he's really been on a tear the last 3 games, right? He was pretty good against Chicago, despite the outcome, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's going to be chatter around Chris Paul all year, I think, because he's been in the league a decade almost, and it's like, when are the results going to come? And I think there's already been a lot of smart and not smart conversation going on around that, as is the case when lots and lots of people are talking about the same thing. But I think for now we can see that when he's at the top of his game, this team looks very good.
Yeah, and Patrick, I actually goaded you into saying he was good against Chicago. I realized not Chicago. I was thinking Phoenix. So really 3 of the last 4 games.
3 of the last 4. Okay.
He was not. No, that's my bad because he was not great against Chicago, but he was obviously phenomenal in the Phoenix game. He might have only had 16 and 9 last night, but I was on CBO with Eddie Rivera last night, and he and I both agreed it was pretty much as great of a 16 and 9 as you can possibly have, especially in the third quarter when he just came out, and I think he had 10 points in the third and just took over the game. With those just elbow mid-range jumpers off the dribble. I mean, he's been so good the last week and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I think he hit all his shots in the third quarter last night, and didn't have to play in the fourth. So that's a good 16 and 9 because you're not you're on the bench. That says as much about your game as having 20 points and 12 assists or something because you played 9 more minutes. Look, if he's going to play like this, that's encouraging. If Griffin's going to be this aggressive on offense, that's encouraging. If Matt Barnes is going to go 4 for 6, that's encouraging. I don't think Clippers have addressed the main issues that have been kind of plaguing them throughout the season. But I do think the offense looked a lot better. You mentioned that you wrote about some of the issues plaguing the Clippers, Fred. Maybe you could talk about how what some of those issues are that have been plaguing the Clippers on offense and how they were kind of if they addressed them tonight, and if so, how.
Yeah, well, this morning I wrote about kind of all the reasons the Clippers were down to ninth in points per possession coming into today, which, is still a top 10 offense and good, but this was a team that led the league in that statistic a year ago, so they have to be graded on a different scale, and there was just a malaise over the team that was so different. They weren't really getting out in transition. I wrote about that a little bit. The offensive rebounding has been an issue, but at the same time, the half-court offense has had kind of a habit of going stagnant, kind of being ball stopping, and not necessarily being able to find second options quickly. Tonight, I thought they did a wonderful job at finding second options. I mean, it was almost like they looked at it and said, like, okay, well, this guy's wrong, and then just completely proved me wrong for an entire game. That offense flowed amazing. I pointed out certain plays where, where Griffin would get the ball high and would try to find someone in the post, and if he wasn't finding him in the post or they were fronting him or denying the ball, then that was it. And all of a sudden, by the time the ball left Griffin's hands, there was 8 seconds left in the shot clock and nothing to do. And it was plays like that that were kind of killing the Clippers' offense a lot. Tonight, we just didn't see that stuff. I mean, Jovan, what were your thoughts on the actual ball movement that we saw from this team? I mean, I thought it was like nothing we've seen all year. They looked like last year.
No, I agree. I thought the ball movement was you had instances where one that stuck out, I believe, was in the third. Let me double check the box. No, it was in the fourth, I guess. When Jamal had that drive and he had the opportunity to shoot his patented 14, 16-footer, and he kind of had that left scoop pass kind of kicking out to Griffin in the corner, and Griffin hit a three. And I thought it was just like plays like that just kind of symbolized like when this team moves the ball, they're almost unguardable. And I think you could put maybe the Spurs and the Warriors and the Mavericks. I mean, there's a few teams you could put in that on that level of when they move the ball, they're basically unguardable. But like the Clippers are one of those few teams, and I think that that's kind of gotten lost this season. And I thought defensively too. Like that's the other thing. Like I think we saw tonight that obviously they didn't have Wade, and Deng was still 5 of 10 and was somewhat effective in kind of getting Barnes to bite on pump fakes and getting away from Barnes on pin downs and stuff like that. But I think tonight was kind of a very good team effort defensively, and Chris Bosh was still able to get his. But besides that, I mean, I thought the Clippers did a good job of taking Sean Williams and Norris Cole out of the game. I know Cole ended up getting injured, but I thought for the most part, like, tonight showed that they aren't going to necessarily shut guys down individually, but when they're clicking as a team, they pack the paint. They don't allow a lot of penetration, and the Heat ended up shooting 6 of 26 on threes, and that was the 3-point defense that we saw last season that led the league. And I thought, this was kind of the best case scenario for what this team could be. Just moving the ball on offense, everyone's involved, creating great shots with Chris and Blake, open threes for Matt and JJ, and then on team, and really just click. Like I just hadn't seen them click like this all season, and it's very encouraging to see that. They're starting this road trip.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We've been talking about kind of the offense the whole time, but really the offense is still top 10. The defense was bottom 10 the whole year pretty much, and it hasn't climbed out of that. It's looked better the last few games. But Patrick, what was your overall take of how they defended tonight?
Yeah, it's kind of troubling when they play a team with a guy like Bosh or Ibaka, because it seems like those guys just get those mid-range shots, and there's nothing the Clippers can do about them. Those shots just go in. So that was happening. Meanwhile, they held this Heat team to which quarter was it? To 15 in the first. Like the Heat scored better in the second, third, and fourth quarter, but like I do think that there was a more of a kind of collective effort that yeah, that they aren't going to shut guys down individually, but when they click together, good things happen. I'm not convinced that they've solved any of their defensive issues yet. I did like the effort and the kind of awareness and communication that was going on tonight. So I want to see more games where it looks like this before we start breaking it down.
Yeah, we're gonna finish up in a second. Before we do, though, Jovan, are you worried about Blake Griffin's rebounding?
No, but that's because I've kind of given up on. I kind of gave up on Blake's rebounding last year. Um, I think it kind of started really deteriorating when Chris came out and he just kind of had to become the point forward, leading the break and leading the early offense and whatnot. But I think he's next to a monster rebounder in DeAndre. I do think there are certain times when he's not boxing out that, I mean, I'd say that's more of my issue, is not necessarily his rebounding numbers. It's just how frequently he doesn't box out his man and kind of just tries to out-jump people sometimes. I think that would be my biggest issue. But his rebounding numbers, like, I'd like to see them, around 9 or 10 at least. But I think right now it's probably going to go up, and wouldn't surprise me if he finished around 9 this season. But I think the bigger issue is the not boxing out, more so than the numbers themselves.
Patrick, it took 44 minutes of basically a 20-point game. It was a 22-point game at the time for Reggie Bullock to get into this game. Doc clearly has an aversion to playing him. It obviously says something about Doc's thoughts on Bullock if it takes him 44 minutes to bring him into a game that's been a 20-point game since about 3 minutes left in the first quarter. I don't know what it says, though. What are the Clippers to do about this? Because they don't really use the D League. And if they're not going to play someone who they want to develop, it stands to reason that you would send him to the D League. You could say the same thing about C.J. Wilcox, who often isn't even active for these games. But the Clippers don't really use the D League. So what is there to do about Bullock? Would you like to see him, even if Doc doesn't necessarily think he can help, just get into these blowouts earlier just to give him a little bit more burn and maybe get him some more experience so he can possibly help down the line? Or are you fine with the handling of him right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it. I agree with you. If he's not going to play, send him to the D League, give him some action. Like, some teams use the D League way different, where like guys will play the night before, like they come in and out active like really regularly. I believe like some teams use it like where guys are coming back and forth. Here's the thing with Bullock. He doesn't move. And, like, our favorite set that the Clippers ran last year when their offense was amazing was this, floppy merry-go-round set. So the floppy set, for listeners who don't know, is like you have your best shooter, your two-guard kind of starting out under the hoop, and there's, like, kind of two screen options from the two big guys. And your Redick is going to come curling out away from the hoop off of whichever screen looks better. And once he does that, all these other options open up. And the merry-go-round one, as we called it, like you had Redick doing that one way, but you kind of also had Dudley going the other way. And there was just this kind of chaos with these two guys running all over the floor, and you'd end up getting an open shot for somebody. If it wasn't a Redick corner three, then maybe it was Dudley from 17 feet on the baseline. So you were getting all these open shots. With Bullock, you just see him camping out in the corner. He doesn't seem to move on offense, and I don't know if it's because plays aren't being called. That maybe they aren't. Maybe the plays aren't being called. But I don't know. That's just something I noticed. Like, you'd think that if like your best asset as a player is catching and shooting the ball from three, you'd be moving a lot more, and you'd get more open looks, and then you could prove your worth on the court. Who knows?
Man, man, if only people knew what went on in our chat, in our little chat room we have on the side of this show. I don't. we would not be doing this anymore. I'll tell you that much. Before we go, Jovan, how's it feel to be back?
It feels good.
Short and concise. I like it. That's going to do it for us tonight. Clippers go to Miami, win big, 110-93. They got a couple of days off before heading to Memphis for a big-time road game to face the currently 10-2 Grizzlies, best record in the West right now. They're not very healthy, but they look as good as anybody else in the league. That game is scheduled to be on Fox Prime Ticket at 3 p.m. on Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, I should say. We're going to be back at you with another show after that. For Jovan Buha and Patrick James, I'm Fred Katz. We'll see you after the Grizzlies game.